Hello and welcome to the Enquiry Podcast. This is a place where we are going to dive into everything that it is to live your life as medicine. So how to follow the breadcrumbs and the signposts in order to be guided to your purpose and to your freedom. How to use your life's challenges as the opportunities that they are for your own healing and growth. My name is Nerida Mills. I am your host. I am a psychosomatic practitioner. I am a coach, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here. I am very excited to get this party started. So let's get going. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Enquiry Podcast. My name is Nerida Mills, and it is my absolute pleasure to have with me today Davy Rowe. How are we going, Davy?
We're doing great, love. We're doing great, loving life, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met Davy, goodness, it would have been back in 2019. As we're recording, we're early 2025 now. So it has been quite some time that we've been in each other's worlds to one degree or another. And I have to say that in that time, you know, just watching the growth that I've seen you go through in that time has been quite phenomenal. And, you know, the offerings that you're bringing to the Perth community and to particularly in men in that space is just A, extremely needed, and B, really inspiring to watch. So I'd love for you to share, better out of the horse's mouth, I reckon. What is it that you're really passionate about, and the form that takes in how you offer your medicine to the world?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the opportunity, Pat. And like you say, it's been a few years since we first met and that, you know, and I really appreciate this opportunity to connect again and, you know, and just to share that, you know. I guess through my own journey of trauma and finding healing and peace and that sense of freedom within it, you know, it was as if that was the idea to move forward, to share this with others, as in it's a bit like your own work. It's like you found a secret, you found a key to unlock the door, and you just want to show people how to unlock the door for them, you know. You want to like share this experience and this knowledge and, you know, and this healing you've experienced yourself, you know, with others, you know. So because my work was based around men's work to start with. I mean, I do one-on-one coaching, you know, and I coach women. I do couples coaching and whatever, and different types of stuff. But a lot of my work is based around helping guys, you know, that are stuck, that are, I guess, stuck is probably the simplest way to put it, you know, whether they're stuck in anger, they're stuck in sadness, they're stuck in grief, resentment, they're stuck in that trauma. They're doing well in life, but they're just not happy. And there's something missing, and they know there's something missing. And typical men, we're fixers, you know, that masculine energy of solving problems and fixing problems for everyone else. We can do that easily, but we cannot fix our own problems, you know, because it's this programming, the way of being is deep within the subconscious. And it's very difficult to see your own eyes, as Alan Watts says, you know. You cannot do that, you know. So you'll know yourself with your own process and healing journey. You can guide yourself as much as you can, but then you hit the ceiling, and it's about someone else showing you the path where you burst through, and you get to another level of evolution because you can't see what you can't see, you know.
Yeah, well, I mean, the mind is literally designed to keep certain things from us. So it's, I think one of the most intelligent decisions that we can possibly make in our own healing, evolution and growth is to tap into the people who we feel drawn to in order to help us see those missing pieces that are often quite apparent to everybody else, but for whatever reason our own mind really wants to keep us blind from them, because they're inevitably, by us recognizing them and transcending them, will create growth, which is terrifying for the mind. So very interesting. And so what was it that drove you to this work? Like, tell me a little bit about your story and what made you really focus in on men's mental health particularly?
Yeah, the mine really started about 2016. We had a pretty successful business, me and my wife, like a family business. We grew it. to be one of the biggest in Perth. And then we basically got cheated out of $1 million on the Perth Stadium project. And that really sent me in a downward spiral, like a dark place. And I'd been to different like sort of levels of like my own depths of trauma, whatever. But that was like the straw that broke the camel's back in a sense, that was like the dark night of the soul, that realization where I found myself on my knees and I knew I needed help, I knew I needed guidance, and I didn't know what to do, when that occurred, I lost a lot of my confidence, I lost a lot of my identity, my purpose in life. We built, like I say, there's a little family business we had, and we'd grew it, and it was like incredible. We had a lot of guys on, and it was devastating. So I remember speaking to my brother about 6 months after it happened, and me and Angie, my wife, we sort of moved house. We shouldn't have moved house. We made these daft decisions in this trauma place. We moved house and we're sitting eating porridge in a sense. I'd never eaten porridge since a kid, but I always remember I was sitting eating porridge for about a year. For some reason, we just got back into porridge. It was really cold, and I don't know. It was just this trauma cycle where I was in. And it was this realization, like, no one's come to save her. There's just me and her, and what the government didn't care, the lawyers didn't care. Like, yeah, there was a lot of like empathy and sympathy of people, and like, is anything we can do? Is it this? But there was nothing no one could do. This is what happened, and we lost $1 million, and that was the end of it. We couldn't afford. The lawyers basically said it's going to cost you $1 million to fight for $1 million. And then I remember getting a phone call off my brother, and he says, I think you should come to America, do this course. And it's like a retreat for men up in the mountains of California. And he says, because really, kid, you've got to like forgive the guys that cheated you. And I was like raging, And I thought, no way, And and that was it. That was the start of my journey, in a sense, with regards to men's work. And I went to the mountains of California, and I witnessed miracles, I witnessed guys dealing with stuff and letting go of stuff. And it was like over this long weekend, and I remember like sitting in a circle of 72 guys on this particular retreat, and around this fire, and as they came round and it was getting close to me, I was really nervous about like speaking and whatever, and I broke down, and it was like, but I realized at that moment I'd found my purpose in life. I always knew as a child I was like different. I could see things. I wasn't the smartest, but I'd like street smart, I could like it's emotional intelligence, really, in a sense, like survival techniques from living in poverty as a kid in your castle in the streets, in a sense, like just getting on, but it was but I always knew I was different. I could feel things. I was a very sensitive kid, and I always knew I was here for a purpose. I always knew there's a reason why I was on earth. And it was like, as I sat in tears within that 72 guys at that time in California, it was like as if there was like an arc like linked back on that timeline to like that moment in time. And it was just like, that's it, kid. That's why you're here, to help others, to do this work, And that was the start of the journey. And yeah, and then I obviously did a lot of different modalities of healing and breath work, somatic healing, coaching, studied all these different, a bit like yourself in a sense. You go down one road and you think, wow, this is amazing. And it's like, oh my God, there's another one over here. I'm going to try that, And me and you is no different to any of our clients, in a sense. We are constantly evolving. We are constantly learning. And the punchline is, to me, is to live a life of contentment and peace and happiness, and just be grateful for what is, Yeah. Yeah. So that was a start.
Tell us a little bit more about where you grew up.
Yeah. Grew up in Newcastle, England, northeast of England. I'm what's classed as a Geordie. And it's on the coast of, like I say, the northeast of England. It's pretty tough, pretty rough area, working class. I was born in 1961, and that was just 15 years after the Second World War. So there was a lot of like poverty. There's a lot of hardship. Like I said, just working class. And I was one of 5 kids. My father died when I was 8, but he was in a wheelchair for like 4 of them years. So I cannot remember my father ever walking. And classic, like on a council house, we lived on this hill, like this real steep bank, you know, so you can imagine me dad in a wheelchair. It was like he couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, the houses weren't built for disability. We had an outside toilet. We've all got, like, all the kids, there's 5 of them, we've all got these like traumatic memories of, like, around my father, like trying to help him to get the toilet, you know, like outside down the step in the wheelchair. My mother had to go to work to try and make some money because it was like the old widowers. Sorry, he hadn't died at that stage, but like there was very little like social services and, you know, like help in a sense off the government in them days, you know. It was very early days for like the labour movement in a sense and socialism, you know, to help people with disabilities or whatever, or illnesses, you know. So it was pretty tough times, you know. But I never knew we were poverty stricken till about 15, 20 years ago, speaking to my sister. And we were out for a drink or a meal one night, and she said about poverty, and she's like, yeah, like, you know, when we were, and I'm like, what? I says, we weren't poverty stricken. And she's like, what do you mean? And I was looking at poverty stricken like Oliver Twist. Do you know what I mean? It's like, please can I have some more, sir, you know, like desperate, you know, like actually living on the streets, like destitute. And she's like, no, she says, we were poverty stricken. She says, like, it was literally like my mother fighting and my father, like, fighting to get food in, you know, so like often we would end up with like a loaf of bread and a tub of margarine and a toasting fork around the fire. But that was like exciting. It was a great night, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, right? Because different kids are going to interpret that in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Obviously, you've taken it as a bit of an adventure, right? It's nearly like you can on the inside, which is really beautiful, and it kind of, I guess, leans into your natural optimism, I imagine. And so, what do you feel like? You know, now looking back on it, knowing what you know and being through the life experience that you've been through, what do you feel like that childhood gave you that enabled you to become the man that you are now?
Resilience, like real optimism, like you say, like, you know, like the glass is half full, not half empty. It's like this drive to get on, you know. I mean, with the work I've done, I went to Landmark Forum in my 40s. I was at a low point and business was flying or doing well. It's like 20 years ago. Driving down the freeway one early morning, voice in my head, drive the van off the road, Davy, and the pain will stop. And it was like shocking, you know. It was like suicidal thoughts, you know, like, where's this come from? Beautiful wife, 2 beautiful kids, and I started looking for a gap in the traffic, you know, to do it. Like, it was just like an instruction. And then I suddenly sort of caught myself and like, what the hell are you doing, you know? And I knew at that point, like 20 years ago, like that was the first time I'd really like, I'd felt like I'd connected in with myself and really checked in. And it was just like, yeah, I was under like a lot of pressure. I was choosing to put myself under massive pressure. So I ended up doing a course called Landmark Forum, and I learned 2 massive things. I did the full curriculum. And the 2 things I learned was, one was I was the way I am. I am the way I am because my father died when I was 8, and I made it mean my core limiting belief in a sense was I need to provide for my family. I need to help. I need so I put this huge burden as a child within my backpack, like this rock in my backpack in a sense to like, I need to help my mother and my siblings, not realizing I'd done that obviously at that stage, but that's what I got out of Landmark. But all I ever wanted in my life was my father to put his arm around us. I'm proud of your son. You know, you've done so well, your beautiful wife, your kids, you're this, you're that, you know, the business success. It's like, you know, I'm really proud of you, you know. But of course, I was like the dog chasing its tail. I could never find that. So this need to provide, I didn't realize I'd give myself that drive, you know, that need to help and that need to provide. So I was just continuously providing. So no matter what I did, it was never enough because I couldn't provide enough in a sense because I didn't realize it's what I class now as like the present state. So I was living my life looking through this veil of I need to provide, but that was from a subconscious point of view, what we're talking about earlier on. And obviously I couldn't see that. So I needed to do this course in a sense. And I needed someone to point that out to me, you know. So that was the first thing I got on this course. The second thing I got was I had a choice. And I remember like honestly, it was like someone just slapped us in the face. It was
Yeah.
just like, what do you mean? What do you mean I've got choice? I say, you can choose to rest, if you want. And it was like, no, I can't. It was just this need to keep
Mm.
working in this driven machine in me, this workaholic. And it was like, wow, so I can choose that. I can act. And it was like, yeah, of course you can. So it's like free will, freedom of choice. It's the most powerful thing we have
Yeah.
as human beings, I believe, and it's like we rarely use it,
Mm.
So, yeah,
And
it
how
was
did that change
profound.
things for you? Like, so after Landmark, what did you choose?
There was this particular morning, it was really strange. It was like, there was a lot of tears, there was a lot of like cathartic release and going through this process and whatever over this 12 months period, doing this full curriculum of Landmark. And I remember like about 6 to 8 months in, whatever, there was this particular morning and Angie took the kids to school and I was sitting having a cup of tea and it was silent and my head was empty. It was literally empty. It was like this work I was doing and it was just like my head was empty. It was so clear, and it was so like peaceful. And I remember this voice coming back in, the same voice that said drive the van off the road. It was like the same voice coming in. It was like, what do you choose, Davy?
Mm.
And it was like, oh, I choose to work in this business for me, Angie, and the kids, not for my father's approval, not for my father's acceptance, not for my father's guidance. I'd realised that opportunity is gone in a sense. So it was like, yeah, I choose to work in this business because what a great business it was. Like, well, we're doing well, and it was like, yeah, I choose to work in this business for me, Angie, and the kids.
Mm.
And it was like, all right, let's do that.
Yeah.
And what happened was, I now realise I became congruent. I became aligned with my purpose, my head, my heart, my gut. Like which I do a lot of work with multiple brain integration technique, and it's like that go-to like modality of coaching is like I became aligned and within.
It's quite interesting because I've had a similar experience myself where I recognized that everything that I had done up until a certain point was to seek approval of my dad also.
Yeah.
And when I realized that there was a period where I would say that I went into a bit of an identity crisis where it was like, oh, why am I doing anything? Why am I showing up the way I am? Why am I in the profession that I'm in? Why am I the kind of parent that I am? Like everything was on the table for questioning. But then came to a similar point, I guess, of going, no, that was the access point, right? Seeking the approval was the access point to propel me onto this journey. This journey is something that I choose. And one of the things that I noticed for myself is that whilst I didn't change what I was doing thereafter, my experience of the doing changed. And the experience of the feedback from the doing changed because my energy that went into it was so fundamentally different. And it was lighter. It wasn't like it used to feel exhausting. And all of a sudden it was energizing. And it just shows you like when we hook into anything that we're doing, that need for approval or that and need in any way, shape or form, right? Because it carries with it a taste of desperation. When we act from desperation, that action requires so much more energy than when we act from a space of choice, of inspiration, of really truly desire, so very, very interesting.
That is it. That's exactly it, Pat. It's where we need to do something to get that result, to whatever, to this, that, and the other. As in, I needed to provide. Once that need was like dissolved in a sense, and I chose to work in this business for my wife and my kids, and we just took off. And so we're back to like Wayne Dyer's quote, when we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. I use that quote and I think such a powerful quote because nothing's changed in a sense. We're still working in the business, exactly what you're saying, but the energy we are giving to it isn't from a place of need and we've got to get this right and we need to provide, we need this, we need that, we've got to get, we're not putting that pressure on ourselves. We're just in flow in a sense, and within 4 years, I think, 4, maybe 5 years, we became the biggest in Perth. And we're like the biggest company in Perth, employing 75, 80 guys. And it was just like, how the hell is this possible? And we're flying, until obviously 2016, where it come tumbling down again,
Well, life kind of gave you that correction.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah. And so well, it's interesting because you can understand, based on the story that you've just shared, why having the ability to provide taken away would create such a challenging reaction or response in the identity as well. Because I mean, all men are driven to provide, right? Number one drive. But when you have the legacy that you've lived through, it would be amplified again. I think a lot of people who are wildly successful in business have that legacy in some way, shape, or form, because you've got to have something that's driving you to overcome the challenges that most people don't want to deal with or look at, right?
Without a doubt. And this is, and when we look at like successful people in life, it's very rare they're coming from a place of compassion and love and softness and choice. It is literally where it's like, I'm going to prove my father wrong. I'm going to do this. There's some trauma. There's some like drive from childhood, from that poverty to like success and whatever. And they're generally carrying that darkness without even realizing they're carrying it. That shadow side of them, that's come on, you've got to get fitter, you've got to lose weight, you've got to be, you're getting older, but you can still fight the young guys. And it's this need, like the competition, especially with men. And it's just like the more we let go of that darkness, of that shadow, the more we literally fly through it,
So what do you feel like is the biggest challenge for men in today's society?
I think it really fundamentally comes from, the main 5 core wounds is childhood, like rejection, abandonment, betrayal, humiliation, injustice, like we'll cling on to one of them. There'll be something that happened in early life and we'll cling on to that. And like mine was injustice. There was just like, we're poverty stricken. Then my dad died, and then I got bullied, and then this happened, and it was like, but that's like you're dropping into that victim mentality. So any of those core wounds, those 5 core wounds, the guy that's been affected by it through his life, whatever it is, for whatever reason, he's within that victim mentality, and he's stuck because he thinks life is just the way it is, and that's like the first stage of like consciousness, and the only way to get out of that is to take radical responsibility, is to choose themselves, so they're stuck in that place of like, well, it's just what it is, it's like, it's tough, it's this, I'm struggling, it's, I've lost another girlfriend, whatever it is, and it's just, that's just the way it is. And it's like, yeah, how's that going for you, mate? Yeah, I'm just drinking on the weekend, whinging, whatever, blah, blah. And yeah, all women are bitches and blah, blah, and diddly-do, and let's have another drink and whatever, or smoke. And they're just numbing the pain, keeping themselves safe. The protector part is keeping themselves safe and they're keeping themselves stuck. But that's the victim mentality, And when you take radical responsibility to move forward, you are basically choosing a better life. And you come into what's called the creator mindset. You come to the second stage of consciousness, which is the creator mindset. So you're now working out ways to improve, to evolve, to actually see things differently. Exactly what you just said. You come from a place of need to choosing to do this path, to choosing to walk this path. And then it's the second stage. Then you move to the third stage. And the only way to move to the third stage is you have to let go of what is and surrender.
To what can be.
Yes, because it is what it is. And the more you fight it, the more you have this inner conflict. That shouldn't be like that. That's it. And you keep going from 1 to 2 to the victim mindset, to the creator mindset. But now you're making progress. This is the hardest stage. The second stage is the hardest stage. But then when you finally let go, you move to a state of like limitless. You start connecting to your purpose, which might be, like I want to be the best father in the world, or the best partner, or the best worker in the world, or I choose to be the best barista, you know, and you're in the coffee, and it's just like everything's perfect, and that's a purpose at that moment in time for you, whatever it is. And when you do this and move to the stage 3, state of limitless, you're basically becoming acutely conscious. Like your conscious mind, which is only 5% of like every day in a sense of the brain set, you know, it's like you're suddenly now really alert in a sense and recognize things that you used to do to now what you don't do. So you're now super like acute, consciously aware. And the more you do this work from stage 3, you move to stage 4, which is basically I'm infinite. You know, you're in this like awakened state of like, yeah, of like flow, of beauty, of gratitude, and you're connected to all forms of life. And it's like, wow. So I've just been for a dip this morning down to Mullaloo, you know, and I'm down there with a lad I'm doing some work with, and it's like we're in the ocean, and there's about 5 or 6 of us, and I'm like, how cool is this, man? And like, it's one of the nicest beaches in the world. Literally, it would be up there in the top 5%, you know, 5-10% of the beaches in the world. And I says, there's 6 over here. I says, it's incredible, man. You know, like really feeling that gratitude of what is, you know, and in that state of like that 4th stage, you know, that state of like, I'm infinite, knowing it, that awakened state. It's like I've been there with plant medicine, with breath work, with, you know, meditations and whatever, and obviously moments like these, like flitting moments. But generally, I'm living generally within the 3rd stage. I can obviously drop to the victim again. I can get triggered. I can, you know, something upsets us, whatever. But I'm there just fleetingly because I'm so acutely aware now with the work I've done over the years, where I jump back into 2nd and 3rd, you know, I let go of what it is and I move into purpose, connect to me purpose, you know.
Interesting. I'd like to highlight something that you said is that, you know, that when you're present in what is, you know, the opportunity for gratitude and expansion is really available to you. And it's interesting if we think about particularly the masculine energy and the desire to provide, so much of that energy around providing would be future paced. You know, what I do today is going to impact tomorrow. So, you know, the ability to be in the present moment would be available, but also a little bit of extra energy would have to go into choosing that for yourself over the default patterning or that primal self that wants to be future focused, right? So it's a good one just to highlight the fact that that is a practice and it is a choice for people, right? We need to be conscious around moving ourselves into that state so that we can have that sense of expansion and possibility when we feel stuck. I think you know, my experience, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong in regards to your own, but my experience with my clients is that a lot of people, when they're looking down the barrel of any form of growth or change, one of the biggest barriers to that is the self-dialogue around making their own human experience wrong.
So without a doubt. Because
this should be easier, you know, like everybody else finds it easier than me, or I'm doing something wrong because I haven't got it all together yet, or you know, whatever that is, where in reality they just have been humans having a human experience and
of course
fucking up forward.
That's exactly it. But again, the more you they come to you because they're struggling or they're stuck, or like you're saying, like we're guys in different things, you know. And when they come to you, they've took radical responsibility to get there. So they've literally had to be vulnerable enough and find that courage or bravery to go, I need help. And they turn up at your office and there they are, or your beautiful space, and it's like, here I am. Now what? And you're like, okay, what are you dealing with? And all you're doing is highlighting problems that they've created throughout their life. And they take responsibility, or it's either what they've done or what someone else did. But whatever it is, we're still dropping in that victim mentality. Life is just the way it is, and it's shit, and I'm not happy, and I need help, and I don't know what to do. And as we say to them, just let go and surrender, it's like, let go of what? You know, they're holding on to what they didn't even know what the hell they're holding on to. You know? But in you explain and you move into the creator mindset, you've come here for help and we're starting to create a path forward for you. But this is the process. You're doing amazing, but the next step is to realize that you did the best you could with what you had at that time at every single moment in your life.
Absolutely. Very important.
And it's like, yeah, I did wrong. I hurt someone. I shouted, I abused, I hate, whatever it is. And it's like, yeah, at that moment in time, that was all you had. That was all you had in your toolbox, in a sense, to do. You reacted, then you felt guilt, shame, whatever it is, embarrassment. And it's like, and then that spiral continues.
Yeah.
I had a guy in here the other day, and I'm like, I said, we've got like a sand castle. And I says, there's 1,000,000 grains of sand. And I says, and we'll remove, like literally in front of her now, I says, we'll remove the plastic cover. And I says, and that sand castle is your life and all of the drama and pain and suffering. And I says, I guarantee, if we look at a grain of sand at this top here, and we look at a grain of sand inside there or in the middle or whatever, get some tweezers and pull it out, I guarantee there'll be a very similar version of events. She said this, he did that to me, I acted like that. He stole me football as a kid, I did this, I got bullied, so then I punched him in the face. Whatever. I says, it's the same version of events from childhood all the way to here. Because that's what you were taught how to be from your parents, from your siblings, from your environment, from your upbringing. And you're not doing anything wrong, mate. You've never done anything wrong. You know? And it's like, it's we're going to make mistakes. In the human condition, the beauty of it is, you're definitely going to fuck up again, you know? It's like, it's guaranteed. You know, it's guaranteed.
Right? What you're speaking into there is the strategy and the unconscious strategy in this case. And one of the ways that I like to frame it for people is it resourceful or unresourceful? Not right or wrong, because that's very subjective. And there's a lot of connotations to right and wrong. Whereas with resourceful versus unresourceful, it just comes back to, is it getting you the result you want? That's it.
Yeah. Like, I used to say to the guys, like, what's your flag in the sand? Where you heading? What do you mean? And I'm like, in a relationship, so they're struggling in a relationship. And I says, like you've got you are your own entity, I says, your missus is your own, you're not like your partner. And I says, and there's a fire in between you. I says, it's like a fire. I says, and if you do not tend to that fire, I says, it's just going to burn out. It's going to go out. And if she's the one that's putting all the effort into the relationship, the separate entity, the thing itself, I says, all the burning is going to come from her side and yours is just going to be ash. And she's like, what the hell? And you're pulling some of her heat onto your side. And she's like, what are you doing? I'm tending to this part of my relationship. You are not tending to yours. I says, it's a separate entity. And if you just let it go, it's just going to burn out. So I says, like anything, you've got to put the effort in to that relationship, which is a separate thing, you know? It's like a living thing on its own, you know?
Definitely. Yeah. Beautiful. So I would love to know a little bit more about your own journey in regards to, coming into the light in this world, in this work, in regards to being willing to share levels of yourself that most people prefer to keep hidden.
Yeah.
And, what has been your own personal journey in allowing for that or moving through your own edge in it?
I think the more I realized, like, this is a purpose and this lights me up, the more I realized I had to step up and I had to put myself out there, because I cannot help anyone if they don't know I'm here, you know? And that's still an ongoing battle for me with regards to Facebook and doing posts and doing this and getting out there. And I cannot stand social media, but I know that's my internal trigger, as in life is just the way it is. It's my own victim mentality of the way it is. So then I choose to be creative. I choose a better life. I let go and surrender to my own pain, whatever it is, on my own trigger. And then I just connect to my purpose, which is about sharing and stepping up and being vulnerable and being open and being honest and authentic to show the men, especially like with men's groups I run and whatever, you know, different courses and all that, and like different women and whatever, I go like different women's groups and whatever. And it's just to be vulnerable and just to be open and honest. And that's the way it is. But because when my father died, I was 8, my brother was 3 years older. by the time I was coming into teenage years and whatever, he was joining the RAF. He was like leaving home. He wanted to get away and join the RAF, Royal Air Force. So I had 3 sisters and my grandmother come to live with her, and my mother's mother come to live with her to help look after the kids and that, because she was struggling, So it was like I was one boy in a house of 5 women. So I have this beautiful connection and like honor and respect for women, and I have this like nice, gentle, sort of feminine part of me, which allows me to show my emotions, which allows me to be vulnerable, and it's like an incredible, powerful part of me that shows other men that this toughness and this hardness and this stuck in this way, because this is the way it is, that for that to open up and melt, in a sense, for that to dissolve away, then we see the real person, then we remove the mask, then we reveal the true them, in a sense, and if they cry, they cry. If they get angry, they get angry. Whatever emotions comes through, and everything's acceptable in this work. Yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's really like what I'm hearing is that it's been a leaning into all of those parts of yourself, right, that actually have been cultivated through your life experience in order to be able to lead the way through your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And, I think certainly for me, like meeting my own edge in different circumstances in regards to this work is my work, right?
Yes.
It's living the work. And when we there's a very big difference, when you're working with someone that lives the work versus somebody that doesn't live the work. So it's highly encourage you to kind of lean into people that are actually living the work, if for those listening. But it makes such a big difference, because what I find is that people who are living the work, like what you've done today on this episode, is they highlight the fact of their own humanness, and their own challenges and their own edges that they're meeting, regardless of where you've positioned them as, right? Whereas people who kind of portray the idea that all of their life is perfect and they're just born this way, I think it's delusional.
Yeah, of course it's delusional. We know this,
Yeah. I mean, we're all delusional. Let's be real, but it's probably unresourcefully delusional.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's with the work I've done and where I'm at, I've tried to condense, because part of my father died when I was 8. I made it mean I had to provide. So I became very, very resourceful, and I simplified everything in my life, like to get the best results in the shortest possible time. So I've got this brain that sees where I want to go, the flag in the sand, whatever that is, to achieve this, whatever. And it's like, how do I get to there? I read this, I do this, that, and the other. And if I read a book and I get one chapter out this book, that's it. I'm not interested in the rest of the book to learn it, whatever. That got me another step up, closer to that flag in the sand. So I've literally come to understand that everyone was born perfect. Most people have seen or held that beautiful little baby, and it's like, oh my God, they're just absolutely perfect. They're just faultless. And even if they've got a deformity or something, they're still perfect. They're just beautiful and perfect. They're just faultless, and you lie them down and they just radiate love like this, just love and acceptance and peace. That's all this beautiful baby radiates. That was you. That was me. And the more I'm doing this work, the more I see you are still perfect, Pet. Everyone I speak to, I just see perfection. I see possibility, and I just see perfection.
I love that.
And the more I've understood, like that baby, like our clients, whatever, you're born perfect and pure. But then from 0 to 7, 8, 9, 90% the brain's work in the theta brainwave state, something is going to happen. A negative moment will happen, I guarantee it. And you will be emotionally, mentally, or physically overwhelmed. 1, 2, or 3 of these. And you're going to make it mean something. Your dad shouts at you, whatever, and you run to your room. And you think, I'm not wanted. And then that same time, that's classed as your core limit belief. You literally create a protector part, and the protector part might say, we're not going out the room because I'm scared, because I don't want to not be wanted. So you create this protector part, and then through life, more and more and more of these situations occur. But that goes back to the core limit belief, which then becomes your present state of being, I am not wanted. And you see life through this veil. And that was the little grains of sand I was picking up with this guy the other day. And I says, they're all based around the same statement, the same way of being. I'm not seen, I'm not heard, I'm not wanted, I'm not respected, I'm not appreciated, whatever it is, it is. And every story in your life, every negative defining moment comes back to that. It's like, wow, yeah. And I says, but that protector is creating more, that protector part of you is creating more of not being wanted, of not being seen.
That's overcompensation, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's about working with identifying the core limit belief, identifying the protector, getting permission to speak to the wounded child from the protector, speaking to the wounded child, bringing that love to that wounded child, that part of you, to heal that part. Through this, realizing that is the old way of being. Is this true? Are you not wanted? Like, you're a grown man now. Are you not wanted? Of course I'm wanted. My wife wants us, my kids want us, my mates want us, and it's like, so it's a lie. It's a core limit belief from the subconscious we've found deep behind, in the darkness. We brought it into the light, and the shadow cannot survive in the light. You know this. And as we bring the shadow into the light, it cannot survive. It's a lie. It doesn't exist. Then we go to, what do you want in life?
Yeah, now let's create.
Yes. And then we go to that I am statement. What do you want? And we chunk it up all the way to, I am free. I am loved. I am the light. And it's like, beautiful. That's what you are. Then we do the MBIT process and align the three brains to find that alignment. And then I send them a nice meditation. And then they listen to this meditation every night, and that rewires the brain. And that's the process.
I love it. Well, listen, Davy, I think we could talk for hours and hours and hours. No, how can people get in contact with you? How can they follow you and find out about your work?
Yeah, davyrowe.com.au, DAVYROWE. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all of that. I can flick you them. I don't know if I've sent you them, but you can get all the links. And davyrowe.com.au. I've got a guys retreat coming up, a 3-day fasting medicine retreat on the 13th, 14th, and 15th of June. And I've got a guys 8-week course coming up on the 17th of June, face-to-face course. So that's my next offerings that's coming up and that, and obviously I do like one-on-one coaching and, little groups. I go out to workplaces and whatever, and, Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again so much for your time and for sharing your wisdom and your story. I really do appreciate that vulnerability and the work that you do and the work that you've done in order to do the work that you do.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity, Narada. It's lovely to see you again, love.
You too. Okay, so that's it from us. Thank you so much for joining us. It has been my pleasure to have you here, and I just want to acknowledge you for spending the time to explore how to have more influence on your own life and be able to create the life that it is that you love. If you'd like to take this work further, you can do so by jumping onto my website at www.neradamills.com/masterclass and join me for my upcoming free 4-week masterclass, Time to Thrive, how to utilize your life as medicine to thrive. That's it from us. Thank you so much and have a wonderful day.